Okay, so this is a pretty relaxed session. The first thing I've got to say is this is not Sir Robin Knox Johnson. This is Robin Davie, okay? 3 times BOC,
3 times.
circumnavigations, lost his mast, lost all the rudder, steering, all sorts of dramas and stuff.
Not all at once, but
Yeah, exactly.
on different occasions.
Okay, we're saying that because I told a few people we're going to get together with Robin, the old man, and people thought it was Sir Robin Knox Johnson. It's not. Anyway, we're just going to have a natter on various subjects because everyone gets bored with my opinion sometimes, and Robin's got some good ideas and good opinions. But before we go there, I thought a few things on the tracker. We've lost the windy TY on the weather at the moment. There's a glitch between the yellow brick and the company windy TY, so it's down temporarily. The good news is that the app, your mobile app that you'd be following the tracking on, it now has wind going all the way across the Southern Ocean. So we've managed to solve that. Yellow brick have been really good, so the app is back on track, and we're hoping to get the windy weather back on the PC within the next however long it takes. Could be a day, could be 2 days, whatever. And we've slowly caught up on that. Anyway, the interesting thing at the moment, and get this, forget about Jean-Luc at the moment. He's way out the front, right? But then you come back to Mark Slats. Mark Slats is now only 200 miles in front of Gregor.
Yep.
Right? And Gregor is only 73 miles in front of Uku.
Correct.
Right? And Uku is only 100 miles in front of Tommy. So that whole middle fleet, the whole, what was the middle fleet, is there now.
Is now really becoming the front
Absolutely.
fleet, apart from Jean-Luc, who's out in front.
Absolutely. Forget about Jean-Luc. He's crazy. But that means you've got Mark in a Russell 36. You've got Gregor in a Biscay 36, catch. Yep. You've got Uku in another Russell 36. And you've got a Suhaili replica right behind them. It's amazing, and that's what we always hope to actually have happen, where you've got different types of boats doing the same sorts of things and keeping together as a fleet.
That's right, and Tommy or Abalash, with his Suhaili boat, is doing a terrific race.
Yeah, exactly, and it just means that anyone could win that. If something happens to Jean-Luc, all of a sudden these guys in the front are right there, which is kind of interesting. You got the tail enders, poor old Susie's back there and so on, but they're having a bit of fun, and this one's right up there. So anyway, it's meeting the expectation in terms of boats being of a similar size, similar displacement. They've gone, a quarter of the way around the world, and they're still within touch. They're still only days apart, except for Jean-Luc.
Yeah, except for Jean-Luc. And the big difference between any of the boats is going to be the quality of the person who's driving the boat.
Absolutely,
or not necessarily the quality, but the mindset, the experience, the knowledge of the person who's actually driving the boat.
Yeah, and that brings us then into Uku. Uku's now safely in Cape Town, which is fantastic, and everyone's been really good there.
That's Are.
Sorry, not Uku, Are, right? And he lost his mast in a rollover. Now, the biggest question we're getting asked is, what is the way to go in a big storm? Do you tow a drogue? Do you tow warps? Do you lay a hull? Do you hove to? Okay, and it's a huge subject. And the first thing before we get into this, and we'll talk about it for 5 minutes or so, is that this is personal opinions. In my opinion, there's no real right or wrong. Every situation is different in terms of the sea state and the conditions, and also the condition of the boat at the time you're in the Southern Ocean. That dictates what you can and can't do. So we'll just give you some opinions. So what's your response to that one?
My experience is you've got to keep the boat moving, and preferably keep it moving fairly quickly. Not too fast so that you get out of control. Certainly not at the full speed you could possibly do. If you're really pressing and pushing the boat, you've got to back off a bit in the storms, in the storm winds. But you really do need to keep your speed up, and you want to make very, very sure you don't let your speed drop down.
Yeah, exactly. I'm of the school, and just to explain the difference, a drogue is like a bucket, okay, on the end of a rope. There's different versions of drogues, but as soon as they hit the water, they're creating drag, and it's holding the back of the boat together so it goes, sort of in a straight line. Towing warps is different because if this is the back of the boat, you've got a rope in a loop and you can easily pull it in and out. Hoving to is backwinding on the sail. I talked about that on Saturday, and you're sort of fore-reaching with the waves and the wind coming towards you. And laying a hull, you just let the boat sit there and it just wallows, beam onto the wind and waves usually, and it's at risk and so on. Now, in Ari's case, he had no self-steering gear. He had lost the safety coupling, it had broken. It's designed to do that. So he had to do something. He ran out of strength and energy to steer, for hand steer any longer. He'd been there 7 hours. He was decided to hove to. Now, the only options he had, he thought hove to was a good idea. He could have streamed warps, maybe, with a small sail up the front, headed down. He could have laid a hull. Why do you reckon he chose to... And I should say Ari will give us a full report on this. Why do you reckon he chose to hove to?
Well, until we hear from Ari, we really don't know what or why he did what he did. But to my mind, I would certainly never lie a hull, because that leaves the whole boat beam onto the sea potentially.
We both confer on that.
What we're talking about here, though, is really big seas. We're not talking about a gale or a storm. We're talking about real storms, Southern Ocean storms, with the big waves and swells that come with them. So that's a whole different ball game.
Okay, I'll just show you a picture here. This is a painting of Suhaili, a very famous one by, I've forgotten his name now, Gordon Frickers. This is a very famous painting of Suhaili, and it's really good because it depicts Suhaili sort of surging down waves. He's already got warps out there doing it, and in fact this painting was of a real situation. That's Robin climbing the mast. He didn't have time to get out of the cockpit and all that, or get back to the cockpit and down below, so he climbed the mast. But when you're towing a drogue, it slows the boat down these waves and hopefully goes straight. But if you broach onto the waves, you do like a wheelie in a car. You go sideways and the boat goes down and so on. That can happen if you're towing
the real thing here is Robin's got his storm jib up there. That's what I would have. Obviously, on most of our boats we don't have mizens, but we'd have that. And if you're in really, really strong big winds, with that sheeted both ways, so that it's not actually out and driving the boat, it's there. Then if the wind gets one side of it, it's going to push the bow one way, and if the wind gets the other side, it'll push the bow around the other way. And then with the ropes out at the back, I've certainly towed warps, and they have kind of, instead of having the bucket effect of just absolutely anchoring and stopping the boat, they're kind of like an elastic band, and they'll slow the boat down a little bit, and then they'll ease off their slowing down and so on. So if you start to surge down a wave, that it'll give a drag that will pull the stern back into the wave. So towing warps is my deal.
The other thing is that this is still keeping moving, right? You're still moving. The warps are never going to stop you.
No, the boat's moving at good speed.
So you're moving with the swell and the sea and everything. And so usually, even if this becomes a really big wave, the wave's going to break on you and things like that. But interestingly, when there's an interesting clue here to what might have happened to Ari, and that's the nature of the damage to the boat, like being dropped onto concrete sideways. If you are laying a hull and not moving, so beam onto the wind and sea, and the wave starts to catch up on the boat, you now imagine you've got this massive wave. If you've got a little boat, say this is the boat, and here's a giant swell, as it comes up, if you're this boat in a giant swell, if all of that water that the boat is floating in or suspended in, the whole lot just gets picked up and dumped into the trough, it doesn't matter whether you're laying a hull, whether you're hove to or whatever.
But look at the picture here. You imagine if Robin had been here instead of here, if he had been just over here under this steep wall of water. And that's something, I remember very, very clearly the number of times that I've been on the big swell, and I've just looked across 100 yards or so, and there is this great big wall where it's hollowing out, and I'm thinking, it's a real good job I'm not just over there.
Absolutely, yeah, because what I was getting at, the whole boat can be picked up by the volume of water and just thrown into the trough. And, we've talked about this when I went round only once, but I would often sit in or stand inside the boat looking out the window, and you'd see these holes appear in the middle of nowhere. It's not the size of the wave. We've discussed this a few times. All of a sudden you get a couple of wave patterns come through. There's a giant hole there, right? And you think, crikey, I'm glad I'm not there. But I reckon there's no doubt in my mind that that Ari's boat was picked up and thrown into the trough. So that's the net result of who knows what. And then the next issue then comes in is the rig, because some people are asking us, why did the rig break? And initially you think, well, that's a very good question, because it's a twin spreader rig, right? It's supported in the columns really well. It's incredible size.
Yeah, pretty good rig.
Really big. And I've got a feeling it might have been partly because you see the crush moment on the boat, the damage on the boat. It might have flexed inwards a little bit. I'm not sure because the bulkheads are gone, and that might have slacked the rigging, the cap shrouds or something, and any number of things could have happened.
And then the rigging came back with so it went slack, and then it went very, very tight, and just the forces broke things. Something broke, and it's always going to be the weakest link.
Yeah.
That's one of the things about the sea. I mean, whether you're talking about the rig or the boat or anything, the sea is always going to find the weak link.
Yeah, absolutely. No question about that. Anyway, we look forward to R's report. He's like an engineer, and he's a top sailor seaman. I'm quite certain he'll come up with a really good report. We haven't spoken to him yet, but he sent us some messages and stuff, and
he'll tell us
we're all
what
glad,
he thinks.
Glad he's there. Okay, next issue, buddy. Francesco lost his wind vane as well.
Oh, dear.
Oh boy, the same thing. And even in the case of Ari's, part of this was all leading from the wind vane. Like he broke his coupling. Just describe the coupling, because you got a monitor. And how many couplings did you take when you went round the world with your monitor? And explain how they break, or they're meant to break and stuff.
Well, I had 6, probably 8 or 10 spare tubes.
Yeah.
And that's just a short tube that's meant to buckle when the forces get so great that possibly the something else would break. So if the weak link breaks, you replace the weak link. And that's a very, very sound safety element of
you got to have it.
The monitor, from my point of view.
Yeah.
And it buckles, so you have to remove the paddle with the buckled safety tube, and then replace it with another. Carry a spare paddle and a safety tube all mounted in it, so I can just put it back up, get the bolt in, and that's a lot more difficult than it sounds, because you are hanging over the back end of the boat at the time doing it, and in those kind of seas.
How many have you broken?
Probably
5.
Probably 4 or 5 in 3 races.
So 4 or 5 in 3. Ari had broken 3. He broke 1 on the way down and 2 in that storm, apparently.
He's got to be looking and asking, why are they breaking?
It's interesting, eh? And I wonder if it's a factor of the weight of the boat and the speed of the boat, because you were going a lot faster. Oh, your first one was a bit slower.
Well, my first one was
40-footer.
A 40-footer, and I had decent speed. I had plenty of speed.
It's interesting, eh? Anyway, the Aries is the same. All the servo pendulum systems should have a brake coupling, and they do. But poor old Francesco, same brand, same type as Nabil and Philippe. It's gone. It's history. I think we've spoken about that a lot. But
that's just a fundamental flaw in the machine.
Then what I was going to bring up, rather than talk about the wind vane, is talk about balancing sails. Now, this is Suhaili, a ketch rig, 3 sails set up. You can put pressure on the front of the boat, and the boat falls away. Put pressure on the back of the boat, the stern falls away. It's certainly easy to balance the boat going upwind and stuff, but the essence of this goes like this. If you've got a ketch rig boat and the hull is the same, it should be able to be balanced really well, wouldn't you say? I mean, Suhaili went...
Yes, it should be. I mean, Robin took the view, well, I've lost all my self-steering bits. Now I've got to find out if I can get the boat to steer on its own. And I'm sure by trial and error, and there were a few errors in what he did as he got himself sorted out, he could do it. So if it can steer for a week, well, why can't it steer for a month? In other words, he gave it a go.
Yeah, speeding up a bit. If Abelish had a problem, he knows he's in the same boat. he's going to carry on. You know what I mean? He's in
I
the same
believe
boat.
so, yeah,
And
absolutely.
it becomes a mindset here about things. If we look at Loic, for instance, he's getting low on water, thinking about Cape Town. He's got enough water to go to Australia. Same situation as Robin. Robin would always only look so far ahead. He said, right, I'm going to see how I'm looking. I'll get to past Cape Town, and I've got enough water for that. That's fine. If I've got enough water to get to Australia, I keep going to Australia and see what happens before then and stop there. Luke's got other issues with his radio and stuff, but again, so is Robin, you know. So it becomes, you know, a mindset thing. So going back to steering, our entrants, they're obviously out to do a race as well as get around, and maybe sometimes the performance side is more important than trying to balance the boat. And I don't know whether anyone's even tried sheet to tiller. It's pretty tough in the Southern Ocean, but you could always go up high. You could go really high and try and get out of the worst of it as well.
Yeah, I think so. There are options for the determined person, but the essence there has to be determined. You know, somebody who's going to, you know, steer their boat without a self-steering gear, as Robin did, has got to be very, very determined. So
really want to drive there, and it's going to bring up interesting aspects watching the race goes around. Why are the entrants there? What's the objective? You know, certainly they don't want to be left behind. They want to be safe. You know, nothing about sheet to tiller, things like that. All interesting stuff. Okay, so another one here: wind power, water power, and solar panels. Where should we lie with? Because Tapio has lost all his solar panels. You know, this is crazy. Which do you think is the most important, and easiest to keep going?
probably wind. If I could only have one, I would probably have wind.
Why?
Because that's what's driving the boat. There is always some wind. There may not be a lot of wind, so the potential problem with what I would call the big wind generators now that really can produce quite a lot of power is that in lighter winds they may not even be producing any power because there's not enough wind to turn them over fast enough. But
I tend to agree with that in that the wind generator is very simple. Right,
Yep.
it's very powerful. You can create truckloads of energy from wind generator. Mm-hmm. The essence of it is be able to pull it down, put it away, bring it out, and put it up. Because if you're going to go in the Southern Ocean, you're going to go down, you get knocked down or something, you're going to blow up all your blades. You're going to be underwater, and so you need to protect it or have spares.
I'm carrying spare blades.
Yeah, you need everything. Yeah, solar panels normally I'd say they're bulletproof. You got to something's gone wrong.
I believe they're bulletproof. I would certainly don't have a great. I mean, yes, solar panels are real important.
Yeah. So I'm thinking in the next race we might actually insist that you've got to have a mobile solar panel. You know what I mean? So you have one solar panel with a flying lead that you can plug in. You keep it down below, and when you need emergency power, you bring it up, put it on deck, plug it in. Because we're trying to look at the ultimate, and a few people are losing power and things.
But are they really understanding how their solar panels work?
Yeah,
because I believe you can just wire your solar panels in such a way that they will charge, and you become the regulator for them.
Yeah. The other one is, of course, water generators produce a lot. Mm-hmm. There's two models in the race. They've both had issues, which is surprising because I know, as you just mentioned, Watt and C. I mean, very good. All the big names are using them all around the world. They're going great, but our guys have had a few issues.
All the Vondi boats use them.
Yeah.
But the Vondi boats are going fast. They need a lot of power. Yeah,
and going fast.
They can then make a lot of power. Yeah. But the boat's going fast, and the reason I haven't really seriously considered water at the moment is I don't believe the boats are going fast enough. Yeah. I mean, we're not having a snail race here for nothing. We're having a snail race because we're in slower boats going slowly.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure we're going fast enough to produce a lot of power. There are times when it will produce good power, but there's a lot of times when you're going slow enough to not be putting out an appreciable charge for the batteries.
Next one, you might not have thought about this yet. How many sails are you going to take?
This is a great question.
And what are they?
and what are they? I mean, I certainly had given it a lot of thought.
Yeah.
A mainsail, a trysail. I mean, I'm not planning on using the trysail. That's for the jury rig, actually.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
you're not going to use that either. But carry on.
Well, I hope I'm not going to use it. But there's a storm jib and a staysail.
Yeah.
And
that's 4.
A Genoa.
Yeah.
And then a Code Zero.
Yeah.
Light air.
6.
and probably 2 asymmetrics.
2 asymmetrics. What about Genoa?
Well, I've got my number 2 Genoa on my roller furler. Yes.
Yeah. So you'd probably take a spare roller furling head sail?
Maybe not.
Okay, all right. So it'll be 9 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
Jean-Luc's got 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. He really trusts his sails and what he's doing. He's got twin furlers, So
so he should. I mean, his sailmaker is a great sailmaker here in Sables d'Olonne, and
I must admit, he's really made me think, because originally I would think all the time, if you're allowed to take 11 on a single mast boat. I would have thought you'd take 11,
Well, what are Jean-Luc's 7 sails?
Sorry?
What are Jean-Luc's 7 sails?
I've got to try and remember. He told me he's got 1 main sail. He's got a stay sail and a storm jib, like 2 stay sails. So he's got 2 head sail, 2 Genoas, what I mean?
Genoas,
Probably a heavy and a light.
Yes.
And then an asymmetric and a full kite. I think he's got 2 running sails. That's it. That's it. Mm-hmm. No trysail, just storm jib and only 1 stay sail. Anyway, it made me think.
Makes
he's a smart
sense.
fella, is John. He's Jean-Luc.
Jean-Luc has clearly got it right at the moment.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, we got another one here. One guy, Glenn Tan, he asked a question. He said, I'd be interested in Robin on this. Creature comforts. He was saying that some boats look a bit Spartan down below. Is the comfort factor really important on the boat? Have a nice comfy chair where you can sit down and read a book, have really good food, like to go for it. Is that really important? To have some sort of relevance to comfort or luxury.
It all depends on your mindset. To be quite honest, I think for me the greatest comfort I want is my bunk. If I'm going to get in a bunk and have a sleep, I want to be real comfortable. So I've got a real comfortable bunk, and it's a flat bunk with wings at the sides, and it's all cushioned so that I can roll one side or the other side. So I can sleep in great comfort. I can put up with all the rest of the, I don't know, it's not the right word, but I can put up with all the crap, all the roughness, all the cold, all the anything, but I've got to be able to sleep, and I've got to have my music. So if you're talking about creature comforts, for me, it's all my tapes.
Yeah.
Real important.
I must admit, I'm the same. You've got to have a good dry bunk. I always had 2. I had a wet one and a dry one. And I'd only hit the wet one in my wet weather gear. But if I went into that dry bunk, I had to be just in my thermals, perfectly dry, everything sweet. That's my little cave. That was the important one. The rest of it, music was important. Music. So that's cool.
Tapes are real important.
Yeah, all right. Just an interesting point I keep forgetting to bring up. Everyone knows this boat.
This is
Joshua. Bernard Matessia's boat. No commercial wind vane. It was back then, but the system that he uses. In fact, before I get into that, I'll try and explain. I'll forget about Joshua for a minute. We'll talk about Sue Haley. Right? This is Sue Haley. The system Sir Robin was using had 2 wind vanes here. They're just weathercocks into the wind. But the system he used was an auxiliary rudder. He had this little shoe down the bottom here, and that was another rudder there. This is the main ship's rudder. He would lash the tiller amidships, and these wind vanes would move this little auxiliary rudder. Okay, and that's like an auxiliary rudder, in principle the same as like a hydrovane, but that was what did the work. And in the end, it completely stuffed up. Broke these. This shoe fell off in the end. He'd lost a lot, so he couldn't use it, and had to steer by hand and balance the boat. That's how he did it. Now this isn't okay. So we go to Joshua now. This doesn't show you anything at all how he did it, but Joshua's was very basic and very simple. He had a weather vane at the top to react to the changes of wind direction as the boat goes off course, upwind or downwind. And all it was on the back of the rudder, and I'll just use this same principle as Sue Haley. Here's the rudder here. There's a trim tab that was connected to the back of the ship's rudder.
Yeah, so, think of it as though that is actually attached to the rudder. If that was actually attached to the rudder, that would be a trim tab for the rudder.
Yeah.
And when the trim tab moves, the rudder moves.
Pushes the rudder.
Think of it like the aeroline on an aeroplane.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's incredibly simple, bulletproof. Bernard went around on Joshua with basically no problems. He went all the way around the world using that vane, homemade bit stuck on the back of the boat. Incredibly simple. It wasn't anywhere near as effective as like an auxiliary rudder system like the hydrovane or a pendulum system like the Aries or the Monitor. It would hunt, so the boat would travel longer distances going like that, But as Matessi said, oh, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. And I would give it a rating of about 80% efficiency, you know, compared to a normal commercially available wind vane. But it worked, it never broke down, and it got him around.
And remember,
also,
he was also, again, balancing his sails.
Absolutely, yeah. The mindset. And back then, you had to go as fast as you could, but you had to finish. You had to be there at the end of the day. So they used to work on that. So that's pretty cool. This is getting to a close now, to wrap it up if you're getting bored, but a couple of things of interest. I've had a few people talking about this little yellow brick. This is not just for GGR. This isn't just for round the world racing. No. This is for any sailor. You could buy one of these. They're, with all the whiz bangs, about £600, and it gives you tracking. Okay, so you've got satellite tracking on your own website, the same as we've got. That's all provided as part of the service. You can send text messages to anyone. People can reply to that. The GGR entrants, we've specially modified these ones. We've locked them up so they can't use some of the features. They can't see the GPS and so on. But if you bought one, you could. Incredible safety device, relatively inexpensive. Nowadays, I reckon this type of device is more relevant than a satellite phone, because short texting is better than phone calls because you've got a hard copy and so on.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing now, as we see we're calling them tweets that come off the yellow brick, these short messages. That's an amazingly easy and effective way of communicating. You know, Esmeralda, says it all. You know,
absolutely. And
having a great day. Dinner was good.
And family and friends can look at the website and see exactly where you are. It's connected to Google Earth.
That's
exactly
right.
the same. You get the wind overlays. And having said that, I mean, they're not sponsoring us. We pay for this. But there is another brand. There's two of the primary ones. There's this one. It used to be just InReach, but then Garmin bought InReach, so you can compare the two. But this principle, this concept of a satellite communicator for sailors and cruisers, stuff like that, it's a lifesaver. It's fantastic. It has a panic button as well, but stick to your EPIRBs. The other thing I just talk about is radios. This is actually, you know, we talk about HF radios. A lot of people in Europe don't know anything about it, but this is actually a ham radio. This is an old one, okay? This is quite old. It's a Yaesu 804, I think it is. But all the entrants have their marine HF single sideband radio. A lot of them have got ICOMs and so on. You buy them on marine outlets and stuff, and that's your primary one. When you get an HF license, you can transmit on that wherever you want. You should also have a receiver, and so all the entrants have got receivers, and that's to pick up time signals, to calibrate their Ralphtec watches, and also for navigation. That's what you use it for. Or listening to BBC Radio, you know, Radio Russia, Radio America for entertainment. What I've always done in the past, you can buy this sort of radio right now for about $400 on eBay all over the place. They've been inside someone's home acting as a ham radio. You won't be licensed to transmit on it, so you leave the microphone out like that is. You set it all up perfectly in the boat. It's the best receiver you could ever have, like as a global receiver.
Terrific receiver.
Absolutely. And if you ever get into trouble in a mayday or distress situation, you can use anything you want to raise the alarm. You could plug the microphone in and just come over the ham networks and say, oh, mayday, this is da-da-da-da, I need a thing. So for a cheap global receiver, look closely at second-hand ham radios. You know, they're really... that's the way to go.
Yeah, and for those competitors that do have a ham license, they probably have one, or I would certainly have one of these as well as the marine receiver.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I did in the BOC. I had my normal HF Marine single sideband radio, and then I had a full ham radio with all set to go, and you could, you know, gives you another option. Anyway, that's it. We'll probably... Robin's going to be here in France for another month or so?
Probably,
maybe.
Yeah. I think so.
Okay. So we might do a once-a-week session. So we could do a series of questions. We'll pick a day, advertise it and say questions for Robin.
Yeah.
Instead of questions from me.
Bring some questions.
And that's Robin Davie, not Sir Robin Knox-Johnston.
No, we can do it.
Yeah, we'll try anything. That's it. I bought some other pictures. I don't know what they were for, but we'll sort that later. Okay, that's all. Thank you. See ya. You didn't say goodbye. I should have said thanks.
Yeah, I know. There we go.
Let's go.
No worries. Oh, okay.